Do you own your own body? Seems a simple enough question, doesn't it? However, in today's society, not only do you not own your own body, but others claim the right to tell you what you can and cannot do with it. Worse, they believe that they have the authority to tell you when a medical treatment is too dangerous, even if you're dying. Now, the state of Rhode Island wants to take a step towards fixing that, and we'll discuss that next on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study. Once again, we're here to read and study the Constitution to teach the rising generation to be free. I'm glad you could join me. As always, I'm going to point you to that website, constitutionstudy.com, where you can find out everything that I'm doing here at the Constitution Study. Hey, sign up for the newsletter. The first people to get notified about the book coming out were the people on the newsletter. I send out a newsletter once a month. I let you know what's going on. I may highlight an episode or a podcast that I did. It's where you're going to find out what I'm going to be doing, where I'm going to be, what events I'll be handling. It's all there, and you can find out more. Again, go to the website, constitutionstudy.com. On the right-hand side, you'll see the button for newsletter. Click on that, sign up, and be in the know. Find out what's going on. Hopefully, you'll also consider buying the book. You can get it at the website. You can buy it through Amazon. It should be up on Apple Books soon as well. Maybe you'll support through a donation, or maybe you'll join the Constitution Scholar Program. There'll be more details on that coming out in May. Most of all, if you can just take this information and share it with people, help other people see and know what's going on and understand the Constitution better. That, I believe, is a long-term fix to what you see is a lot of the problems we have with our governments, both state and federal. So with that, let's go on and let's talk about what's going on in Rhode Island. In early March, the Rhode Island House passed H. 7266, titled the Nil-Faken Terminally Ill Patients' Right to Try Act of 2020. Right to try laws are an attempt to overturn some of the most invasive and in many cases ridiculous rules about medical treatments for the terminally ill. Now, the purpose stated in the legislation is, quote, the legislature finds that access and the use of experimental treatments for patients with terminal illness will provide persons with the fundamental right to control the decisions relating to their own medical care. In order to respect these rights, the legislature declares that the laws of the state shall recognize experimental treatments for patients with terminal illness and establish conditions for the use of experimental treatments. It's not that the right to access experimental treatments that provide people with a fundamental right. Your right to your body does not come from any government regulation or policy. Now, if you own your body, you should be able to do with it whatever you want, as long as you don't infringe on the rights of others. Now, the federal government, through the illegal Food and Drug Administration, has assumed the power not only to test drugs, but to determine whether you should be allowed to use them. And as if that weren't bad enough, imagine the chutzpah of telling someone who will die in a few months they cannot try a treatment because it may give them cancer in 20 to 30 years. Now, nothing in the Constitution gives the federal government the authority to regulate food or drugs. Now, I applaud those in the Rhode Island House for attempting to restore the rights and the dignity of the citizens of their state. Make no mistake, though, this legislation, in fact, no act of government, can provide you with fundamental rights. Now, to summarize the legislation, it says that a terminally ill patient can receive an experimental drug or device for treatment. The manufacturer is not required to provide the drug, and neither is the patient's insurance nor the government required to pay for the treatment. Also, the manufacturer, doctor, or hospital cannot be held liable should the treatment actually kill the patient. Now, while the legislature claims that access to experimental treatment somehow provides people with terminal illnesses the fundamental right to control decisions about their health care, they also claim the authority to limit that right to those they think are sufficiently dying. From the bill, investigational drug, biological product, or device means a drug, biological product, or device that has successfully completed phase 1 of a clinical trial but has not yet been approved for general use by the Food and Drug Administration and remains under investigation in a Food and Drug Administration approved clinical trial. Now, should this bill become law, terminally ill patients won't be able to try just any experimental drug. No. The legislation requires that the treatment has passed phase 1 of clinical trials and remains under investigation by the FDA. Now, in order to be eligible to receive an experimental drug, the dying patient not only has to consider all other treatment options, they have to receive recommendation for the treatment and the documentation that proves they meet the requirements of the law from their doctor. Isn't it ironic that while claiming to provide a fundamental right, the state of Rhode Island still wants to control it? That the state will still require the terminally ill patient to get their permission before trying something the federal government hasn't approved yet? Now, this bill will push back against the federal overreach, but it's a very, very small push. This fundamental right to control your own decisions over medical care is not really protected by this legislation. Medical decisions aren't even made by you anymore. They aren't even made by your doctor or even your insurance company. They are made by bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. and your state house. These people who claim to work for the public are deciding what medical treatments they will allow and under what circumstances. Want to try a drug that has been used successfully in another country? Not without Big Brother's approval. Want to try some non-traditional treatment? Well, better hope it's been properly approved. And like our English cousins, how long before the government will claim the authority to prevent us not only from getting a treatment here in the U.S., but from going overseas for it? Oh, by the way, why is it only terminally ill patients have the right to try? Why can't you and I try whatever treatment we're willing to pay for? Have those in government assumed for themselves the authority to tell us what is best for us? Sure, we ask them to make sure drugs are safe, as if anyone could actually do that. But by acting like we're children that need to be taken care of, we have created an overprotective and paternal government that thinks they have the authority to tell us what to do and what not to do. And I think it's time we change that. The American people should require the dismantling of the Food and Drug Administration. If you want your food and drugs tested for safety and efficacy, well, there are plenty of organizations that can do that, and they can do so without the bureaucracy and overhead and the corrupting influence of having the government do it. Companies could submit their products to testing, like we have for appliances tested on the United Laboratories, or other products reviewed by Consumer Reports. Doctors' ethics boards could require them to only prescribe drugs that have been submitted to such testing, but ultimately leave the decision up to the patient. Even insurance companies could decide only to pay for tested prescriptions. In short, the American people must learn to make decisions for themselves and accept the consequences of those decisions. We must also be willing to hold manufacturers accountable for defective products. On the other hand, if we want Mama Washington to take care of us, well, we better be willing to be sent to our rooms without our supper if we don't do what we're told. You cannot be taken care of and be a free people at the same time, because it's not possible to be both ruled and free. So where do you sit, America? Do you believe that simply because someone is a federal bureaucrat, they know better than you what drugs you should and shouldn't try? Do you believe that somebody with a government paycheck should be able to tell you what drugs you can and cannot try and under what conditions you should be allowed to do so? The Food and Drug Administration was originally set up to protect us from poorly manufactured drugs, but it's gone too far. Now, if they don't think it's effective, they tell you you can't try. What happened to being a free people? The problem is being free comes with responsibility. If you try an experimental drug, it might kill you. It might make you sicker. But you should be able to make that decision based on your situation. If a drug is shown to give you cancer in 20 to 30 years, well, if you're already 70 years old and don't think you're going to live much more, isn't it worth a try? If you're a mother of 2 children with cancer and been told you have 6 months to live, wouldn't you try something that might give you another 5 or 10, even if it would kill you in 20 to 30 years? See, the problem with having bureaucrats do this is they're divorced from the consequences. There's no benefit for them to try something new. And there's only downside if it doesn't work. That's why we have to take medical decisions out of the hands of the bureaucracy and put it back in the hands of the American people. Get information, get good information, get as much as you can, make your decision, and then deal with the consequences. And if a drug company makes a truly dangerous drugs, well, then they should be sued. But that's what it's there for. Will suing them bring your loved one back? No. But there's no guarantee you'll survive walking out the front door this morning. Life is not a guarantee. And there's not enough bubble wrap in the world to protect you from everything that might go wrong. We all make decisions every day weighing the consequences versus the benefits, and we should be doing that with our medical decisions as well. Head over to the website, constitutionstudy.com. Tell me what you think. Leave me a comment. Ask a question. Most of all, I hope you'll hang around because I want to see you here the next time on the Constitution Study.
There's one thing you have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long